It is also important to have a firm understanding of the ASID governance structure relating to chapters and the important duties and responsibilities you signed on to as a chapter leader, especially if you are one of the 8 elected chapter board members. So as the government requires all organizations granted a nonprofit tax-exempt status, in addition to state and federal law, ASID is governed by a set of documents that were adopted by the National Board of Directors on behalf of the membership at the founding of ASID in 1975. These documents are reviewed and occasionally revised to meet the changing needs of the society and its members. So starting there at the top, the documents there that are listed in red. The bylaws and policies of the society are the highest level of governance for the society. They are our constitution, in effect, the laws that govern the entire society. There are only one set of bylaws and policies for the entire organization, just as there is only one overreaching strategic plan that drives the direction of the organization. Chapters must be in compliance with the Society's bylaws and policies. As you take the oath of office as a chapter board member, you agree to abide by and uphold these rules and policies. It is essential, therefore, that you read the full ASID bylaws and policies, which you can also download by going to the About section of ASID.org. Now, moving on down to the documents that are listed there in blue under Chapter Governing Documents. All chapters should have their own operational policies that explain how each chapter governs. Things like how often the board meets during a year, what type of board expenses are reimbursable, or what recurring committees exist beyond those required by the larger ASID bylaws and policies. Now, while the society bylaws and policies can only be adjusted by a vote of the entire membership or national board action, chapter operational policies can be adjusted through official chapter board action. The chapter strategic plan outlines how each board plans to support and implement the larger ASID strategic plan through chapter tactics and programs, which then drives the chapter's programs and annual budget. Seeing how our society's governing documents are the foundation which drive everything emphasizes their importance. Knowing your chapter's operational policies and strategic plan and keeping all of these documents top of mind throughout your board year will help you keep your board focused. These are your roadmaps. Since you can't do everything, it keeps you focused on the types of programs and activities that your chapter board has agreed to focus on. Now, there are specific things related to our tax-exempt status. First off, chapters are not incorporated. In fact, chapters are prohibited from being incorporated in the ASID bylaws and policies. As such, all chapter activity creates some liability to the entire organization. This is one of the reasons why the ASID policies state that all chapter contracts must be sent to review to ASID headquarters before being signed. We review contracts to make sure language is in place to sufficiently protect the entire society and the entire membership from legal liability and risk. This is also why only the chapter president is authorized to sign contracts. There are many different tax designations within the codes for tax-exempt organizations. ASID, and therefore all of its chapters, are a 501c6, or a professional society that focuses primarily on education. This also means that we are allowed to engage in lobbying and influencing government action without receiving any tax penalties for those activities. But in exchange for that right, donations to ASID or its chapters are not tax deductible, as that is the rule set by the government for organizations that lobby. Now, there is an ASID foundation that collects money for research and education initiatives, and those donations are fully tax deductible. Now, and finally, in order for a chapter to maintain its legal chapter status, the government requires that all chapters must maintain a governing chapter board at quorum as determined by the bylaws of the organization. that each chapter must file its own annual tax return, and that each chapter must also hold annual elections to install new officers. And on that note, it's important to note that the chapter election candidates are determined by a nomination committee that acts independently of the chapter board. This committee is typically led by the immediate past chapter president. This is to avoid the current board having an undue influence over who will serve on the board in the future.